Hello. Testing, testing. You go out and spend a whole lot of money right now, but I did need a zero-turn lawnmower and found one online and called the dealership and bought it for 48 months, zero interest, and the first 5 months you don't even make a payment. That's a pretty good deal. And I'll bet you can get some deals on cars right now too. Of course, if you can buy them online, because financing is cheap out there if you can get it on things, on products like that. So I just thought I'd share that. So Lori, you're the only one that I don't want unmuted at this point. I have to tell you a little story about my friend Lori. So Lori and I met, she's from Virginia, and Lori and I met on a financial friends cruise, I believe is the first time we ever met. You know, I have to take one for the team here at Carolina Hard Money twice a year and go on a cruise and meet up with other investors, and we share and learn from each other. And, you know, sometimes we have to get off the boat and enjoy whatever island we're parked on. It's a tough life. But this is one of the things that we got to do is we got to meet each other there, and we started a women's mastermind from one of those cruises. And Lori was at the first women's mastermind that we have. She's been to all of them since then, of course. But I just remember her getting up, and she's just got this little sweet, look at her. I mean, she's got this sweet little voice, and at the time she still had a real job, but she was just starting to get into real estate, and she has 4 kids. Yeah. Look at her again. She's got 4 kids, and just seems so sweet. And she is just tearing up the real estate world right now. So, you know, as soon as we had to get online with all of these meetings, I thought to myself, wow, I can get all of my friends from all over the country to come and speak now, because they can't say, hey, they're not in town. Yeah. And Lori, it's really funny because last week, David Richter was in town anyway. He was in town working with us with our Profits First thing. So he was our first guest. He's from Richmond. Lori is from Richmond. I've got Jim Ingersoll coming next week, and he's from Richmond. So they have this group there. We call it the Richmond Mafia. So we've got the Mafia showing up Sonrisers. But Lori, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. It's so good to see you. You know, I love you anyway. And I just want for you to kind of tell your story, talk about how you got into the business, and we want to hear about this mansion that you're in now, because I did tell them a little bit about that. Yeah. And I love the idea of you going and meeting people for lunch. That's another thing I kind of want to touch on while you're there, but you go ahead.
Yeah. Well, thank y'all so much. Thank you, Wendy. I love you. I mean, every time we get a chance to get up, it's the best time, and I come home and I'm re-energized, and that's why the people in my circle are so important to me. You know, we help each other, uplift each other, especially in this time. I have a lot of people that are calling me where I might have been, you know, an acquaintance in real estate or just out there, and they're calling panicking, and I'm giving advice, stay calm, but that will also affect your own self. Mm-hmm. So I think in this moment, you know, you need to help your circle stay positive. And if they're pulling you down where you feel like you're starting to feel that, you need to lift yourself out or have a buddy system. So that's kind of what I think of, you know, my network with Wendy, and, you know, being in that women's mastermind has been huge. But I started in 2012. So I thought that I would, you know, make some extra money. I was, at the time I had 3 kids. And so I thought, you know, I needed some extra money. My husband at the time, he stopped working. He had some stuff going on where he could not work. And so me working at Capital One and having all these kids and all these bills, I knew I had to do something. So I met people in my local real estate group, joined the RIA, and I was there, you know, every meeting. And I would take people to lunch and say, you know, how did you get in? It was just really inspiring. Everyone had a different story. And, at the time I was struggling myself. I needed inspiration. I needed guidance. I needed to find a way. And so that's what people did locally. They, took them to lunch, asked them for their story. They were very giving. And then I, asked, what can I do for you? And at the time they're like, well, nothing, because you don't know, it would be more work for them to train me. So I just kind of hung around, and they always said, make offers. If you're not embarrassed by your offer, then it's not low enough. So for you, just start calling people. So I thought, okay, well, let's see how it goes. Called all the properties listed on Zillow for sale that were on the market, and I would just talk to their agent, getting comfortable. And there was a house listed for 60, so I threw out my offer for 30 and thought, well, that's probably low enough, because I was real embarrassed putting it out there. And the agent called me and said, well, 30 is ridiculous. The house, you'll be able to resell it for 200. And it needed a lot of work, but he said, your offer's ridiculous. And I'm like, oh, okay, no problem. He's like, but we'll take 35. Oh, wow. Well, I guess I got to do this now. So borrowed money from my dad, helped me get started. So, I'm very thankful for him. He saw that this was an opportunity, and it was hard. We opened the walls and we were like, oh my gosh, there's termites and mold and fire. And so it ended up becoming a full gut project on, I was working full time. I had the 3 kids. I mean, it felt like I had many hats. And I just found a way. We got shut down by the city because we hadn't pulled permits. So I had to learn that whole process. And they're not easy on you when that happens. So my first project was probably the hardest, because I didn't know anything. I had contractors that were taking advantage. So what I call is a learning process. I did end up making money when I was done. I think I was all in for about 110. And then I had owned it for 6 months. So they said, well, why don't you just refinance and cash flow? So that's what I did. I refied my dad out. He was really happy. I paid him interest. And then I've been cash flowing $500 a month since 2013 is when I got a renter. So,
Wow.
and I just sold it last year for 40 grand more than what I thought I would. So when you
Wow.
add up all those years of income plus the flip profit, it makes a big difference on the hold side. And so that was a big learning for me early on. I did start doing more cosmetic flips after that first one to make some quick money, because I realized the full guts are, really hard. But, from there, I saw the value of the rental. I'm at work and my renter's pretty much paying my utility bills or my mortgage. And so quickly realized that was going to be the way to build wealth. So from there, I would do 1 or 2 flips at a time. And I would just pick up 1 or 2 rentals because I was financing and then I was going to the bank. So I could only do a couple at a time. Maybe 2 or 3 in the year I would pick up for rentals. So it was a slow process. And then 2015, I was just driving around, called a sign that said 100% financing in front of a house. It was actually like a marketing for a lender to, lend for the house purchase. But I didn't know that. So I just called him up and said, are you financing this house? Because I'm an investor. And he's like, no, it's not the right product, but I do know somebody that's liquidating a portfolio. And I thought, wow, that
What's a
seems like that could
portfolio?
be an easy way. Yeah, portfolio. You mean they're already rented and, they're already working. So to me, it seemed more like a business. So thinking about it, you're buying maybe 10 properties at one time and, they're already rented. So maybe someone doesn't work out through that process. That's okay. You have 9 rented, and that 9 rented, the income is going to offset your expenses and everything. So it gives you a way and it gives you power to say, well, maybe I just want to sell 1 out of the 10, maybe I'll sell 1 a year. It can be more of a tool on planning, estate planning. So once I started picking up the portfolio side, I realized, this is a way to generate wealth fast, but also safe, because it's more like I'm buying the business. So
Let me make sure that everyone understands. So what you were doing is you were looking for landlords who were willing to seller finance their portfolio properties. Is that correct?
That's right. So essentially, the guy said, I have this guy who's liquidating. And when I talked to the seller, he said, well, I have over 50 rentals. Here's my list. Why don't you pick 10 of them, your top 10? And I'm like, okay. He said, I'll finance up to 10 properties for you.
And
And
then
he said,
talk about why you picked the 10 that you picked. That
yeah,
was
so it
interesting.
was
Tell me.
hard. As a newer investor, that was difficult to think I'm picking 10 properties. So I analyzed them, and based on what they were getting on rent, I picked the top 5 that were cash flowing. And then I picked the top 5 that I thought had the most equity. So I thought I would diversify in that way. But my minimum rent income per door is $300 profit per month. So I needed to make sure they were close to that, or I could do some value add to get to that, because some of them were under market, and some of these properties had renters in them for 10 plus years.
Wow.
So it was very different. So I picked the top 10. The seller did not ask me for my credit. He didn't ask me for my background or my income.
Wow.
He didn't screen me at all. I was shocked. But what he did say was, why don't we buy one of them? If it's successful, then I'll let you have the 9 others.
Wow.
And all I had to come up with was 10% of the purchase price to put down. So I don't remember the exact numbers, but I know the first one was around 100. So I had to bring around 10 grand down to do the purchase plus the closing cost. And there was an agent involved, and so he got paid out through that 10%. He got his commission at closing. So he was also motivated because he thought, oh my gosh, I could help the seller sell 10 properties to this one girl, and he's going to get full commission, on 10 properties. So we worked that out, and I thought the light bulb went off. Why have I not been doing this?
Mm-hmm.
If you could find one seller that's willing to sell you 20 properties, well, maybe that's the one deal you do for the whole year.
Mm.
Why chase all the one-offs when you can make it easy and you're buying a business? So that attracted me, 2015, and that seller allowed me, I refinanced him the next year, and he gave me 10 more. He blessed me with 10 more. And I was like, it was just a beautiful relationship. But let me tell you, I just refinanced him out of 8 properties in December. And I said, well, you have any more, Carl? And he said, actually, no. Like, he had liquidated his whole portfolio. He's just, that's all he has is with me. And I said, well, what did you do with the money? And he said, well, I think I'm going to open a CD and make, no interest pretty much. And I said, well, would you be willing to loan that money back to me? And he said, yeah, I would. So last month, not only did he fund 3 additional purchases, 3 additional deals for me, he also allowed me to loan money to 2 of my friends, investor friends. I was able to do a wrap loan. So I was able to get a point and then a 2% spread reloaning his money.
Did you use your self-directed IRA for that?
I did not. I did use my solo 401k.
Oh,
so
good.
that money is going to that. But I need to do more. So I asked Carl just yesterday. I said, I know real estate's crazy. The whole market's crazy. But he's just feeling like he's just worried what's going to happen. And that's what most of my lenders are feeling, because they're smaller investors like Carl, the guy that's just been investing his whole life. And he assesses risk a little different. They want to see things settle a little bit. Mm-hmm. So my business hasn't slowed down. So, I have a couple properties in the pipeline, and that's what I talk about, use your inner circle, because right now I was like, oh my gosh, I had these deals. I don't have the funding as easy anymore. And so my friend Martine, she gave me a pep talk yesterday, and she's like, girl, your problem is that you're cooped up for the last week. You haven't gotten out, and I really thrive on people's energy. So not being around my people is so hard. So, but she talked me through, and she said, you just need to make a list, start calling your people, which I had done, but it was in the middle of the craziness last week, and I had a lender drop off the day before closing.
Mm,
So, it makes you feel like, oh my gosh, but really it was a blessing. If that lender was willing to walk a day before,
right.
imagine what kind of lender he would be like through a project.
That's right. That's a
So,
great point. That's a
yeah,
great point. We I have found the same thing, that it's, when it comes to money, people's character really comes to the forefront,
yeah,
on what's going on. And even for us, we've had to change some things. We're collecting interest now at the closing for 3 to 6 months when people are closing their properties with us, which we weren't doing before, but it's thinning the herd.
yeah.
It's showing who really has the gumption. So, um, the thing you keep talking about, Lori, is how you're reaching out and you just call people, you ask. It might sound like a ridiculous ask, but at least you're asking.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about what prompted you to tell a little bit about the house you're in now, and what prompted you to do it, and how you got a hold of this house.
Oh my gosh, I wish I could give you a tour right now. So, um, we've been rocking and rolling on the flips and rentals, and I'll tell you, it does get a little old when you buy, the same crack house. you know, you're fixing it up, and it does make a difference in the community, and that feels good. But I've really been doing the same type of deal for the last, 8 years. I look
Right.
for the same thing. And so through traveling and, different people in my network, it was just a conversation at the Quest Expo. We were hanging out, and I asked him, I said, well, we started the same year, and you boomed. Like, what did you do different? Like, I want to hear, what got you, just skyrocketed. And he said, well, easy. I would just call the high dollar listings. They wanted 4 million, and I would say, well, I could give you 1 million if you'll seller finance it. I mean, which sounds ridiculous, right? But he said people don't realize there are motivated millionaires just like there are motivated, $200,000 properties.
Well said.
And yeah, and I said, well, I just never thought that would ever be the case. So it stuck in my mind. And, everyone's talking about the recession's going to happen. Don't buy higher dollar properties, which they were right. But, that didn't matter to us, because to us, everyone talking about it, it seemed like an opportunity. Calling and getting a seller finance low payment on $1 million property, that you can make money on. So it wouldn't be something that would be a massive property that we would just want to, hold to say we have it, right? We're investors. It's got a cash flow. So I told my friend Ryan, who's a traveler, and before he left for his travels, he drove to Richmond, and we took a day. We said, we're going to try something different. And he's an agent. We called all these properties that were listed on Zillow on the market, and they were homes that were, $700,000 and up. And we decided we would call all of them and ask for seller financing. What could they say? We made the most ridiculous offers, right? But almost all of them said yes.
That's
Almost
crazy.
all of them said yes to seller financing. So we said, well, let's dig into these a little deeper. They all said yes for the most part. So, is it a huge house that comes with, 100 acres where you can subdivide it, and the acreage pays for the house, and then the house, you could have weddings. We were just running with different ideas. And we decided, yeah, let's really move forward if it can make money. So we got this one property. I'm actually in it right now. I'm hiding from the kids. So I'm in one of the bedrooms, but I could tell you a little bit about it. It's a main house, and I'll send y'all a picture. It's a main house. It's about 5,000 square feet with a pool table, poker, hot tub, a pool in the back, a pool
Sauna,
house with a separate structure house that you can rent
tanning
out.
bed.
Tanning bed. We sold that yesterday. We sold the tanning bed.
Dang.
And then a full apartment over the garage, a greenhouse, a gazebo. And then in April, the guy had bought 40 palm trees and banana trees. They're in a greenhouse, and every year they dig them up, and when it gets cold, and they replant them in April. So it was just like the house was like ridiculous. We had only seen it online because we're making offers verbally. You know, we're not running around. And so I made the offer on this property. I looked at the history. It had been listed for 2.2 million. And it had been listed and then taken off, and you know, it just kept dropping every year. They had been trying to sell it for years, and it had just hit the market for $7.99.
Wow.
And so, you know what my offer was? I mean, I'm just going to tell you, he had original Picasso hanging on the walls.
Wow.
Like, he had a baby grand piano. Like, this house was high upscale art, like just kind of crazy, right? And so we made the offer of $650, and we wanted everything in the house, the art, everything, including the wine bottles. So he came back and he's like, well, your client is ridiculous. Clearly, he said the art alone is worth over $1 million. He has sensors on every piece of art. If you were to remove it, the sensor would go off. Wow. And so, I mean, it was just like the craziest thing I'd ever seen. So, you know what we said? Well, what can you do? Right? What can you do then? And he was a motivated millionaire. So he was going through divorce. This is the third house that he was liquidating. He had already sold his mansion in Virginia Beach. And like, the house has wrought iron gates. You put the code in and the gates open. I mean, this is something I had never seen, and I'll just have to share the listing so y'all can see it. But we thought, oh my gosh, we can make money on Airbnb. We could host events, masterminds. And so what he came up with, the owner, he said, I'll give you everything in the house if you can pay the listing price of $7.99. He said he would do seller financing at first, but then his situation with the divorce, I ended up getting a private money lender that saw the value in this place. So we settled at $7.99, and the furniture in this house, y'all, is probably worth like $100,000 to $200,000.
Wow.
Persian rugs. I mean, I'm here in the bedroom, and like, it's like king size bed. I mean, the furniture and the TVs and the hot tub. I mean, I got everything here. If I wanted to host a party, I would throw up all the tables. I mean, it came with everything. It had a little deferred maintenance. So I had this plan that I would Airbnb it. It's listed up today for like $900 a night, which is crazy. But my payment on it, I feel good because I have the reserves in place. So my situation, you know, since I've been building, I've been, you know, putting my little acorns and you know, trying to hide them. But it is a scary time just knowing that I did just make this purchase. So I'm like, well, I might as well enjoy it. And the kids are out of school right now, so we've been really enjoying it. And it's brought my family so much closer together. They're on the tennis courts. I mean, and when I brought them here, I took a video. You would have thought my kids had won the lottery. So I want to remind you what jobs I normally take them to. They're very rough, and I'm not a fancy person. So this is just something that has been an amazing experience. I've really fallen in love with real estate again. And I know it can be scary when we're going through this down, but the opportunity is there. I'm excited about it.
That's awesome. So I couldn't believe it when I saw the pictures too. It truly is amazing. We've got a question on here where someone's asking how does seller financing work, and really seller financing is your seller is your bank. Your seller's the person that's accepting the payments on it. It's pretty simple. The other thing I really want you to talk about is your tribe. You've mentioned that a couple times, how important that is, and we talk about that in this group a lot too, as how important it is to, you know, to work with your network that you know, like, and trust. And you do a pedicure. Is it a monthly meeting? And
it's
then the lunch thing that you do.
Oh, yes. So I am really missing that. I mean, I'm really missing my pedicures. So a few of my friends locally, Martine and Leah, we would go get pedicures and just talk real estate. And we thought, well, you know, all of the meetings here in Richmond are in the evening. And so for me as a mom to, you know, work all day and then make a meeting in the evening, it can be sometimes really trying. You know, anybody out there in the evening, it's harder if you've been working all day.
Right.
So we thought, well, let's just start inviting more people to us. And we said, I'm not as organized when I bringing together at a networking because I'm working, I'm in the field, I'm trying to make money. So we thought, well, let's just make it easy and tell everybody to come the first Thursday of the month. And that was last year. Well, last Thursday that we met, which was beginning of March. Oh my gosh. We had 17 people come.
That's
And these are
awesome.
men and women, 17 people showing up at the spa, and they give us a good deal. They're making us egg rolls. We get a drink and a fruit and cheese plate, and they treat us good. And we sit in circles and we talk real estate. What are we doing locally? Maybe we have houses listed in the same neighborhood. Now we can work together on our comps. We can talk about finishes. We're doing deals. I'm in a massage chair here getting a pedicure, and then someone yells out, "Hey, I have a deal in Barton." And I'm like, "I want it." And then someone over here says, "Well, I want to fund it." And then you put a whole deal together. You're getting a pedicure. It feels great. So we started doing that. And, Rich Lennon got his first pedicure. So we have all these men in real estate coming to get their first pedicure. So I feel like I'm doing a service to all. So we have a lot of fun with that. It's just fun. It's not organized. We're just investors really networking. So I love that. It's really picked up. And then I would say about 4 months ago, me and my friend Martine, for those that know her or don't know her, she started as a huge wholesaler, has a team working for her, but she also is into commercial now. She has a rental portfolio. She has a podcast called Do It Movement. And that girl, she's 31, so she's just crushing it. So we went on a cruise to Cuba together, and we were like, well, when we get back, we really need to start networking more. Why don't we do it together? Because, I'm doing something totally different than Martinez. We look at it at different angles. So we thought, let's just go, when we get home, let's invite somebody one per week. She has a different network than I do. So kind of cool that we're picking people from our own separate networks and then asking them questions from different angles.
So you're taking them to lunch, right?
We're taking them to lunch and we're treating them. And when we sit down, we have great conversations, learning about them. And y'all, we've asked people, like we actually asked the Richmond mayor to have lunch with us. He said yes. Can you believe it? He said yes. I was like, and I told my daughter, the Richmond mayor said he wants to, sit down and eat with us. We asked him to lunch. And she looked at me and she goes, "Mom, well, then why didn't you just ask the president?"
Yeah.
I was like, well, I guess you're right, and that's what we need to do is think about, our kids, they have no boundaries. Why are we putting boundaries on who we ask to lunch? So me and Martine have asked, ridiculous people like high up in the commercial space in Richmond. And like now they're our advocate. Like they're like, what do you need? If you ever need an architect, do you ever need a consultant? Things that I don't even know what I need, it's in my network. I might not need it right now, but I've met so many people in the last 4 months. I mean, it's just huge, huge help. And so while we're all going through this, right, together, we can call on each other and, ask what they're thinking. Do they need help? And the biggest part for the lunches that I will say, the biggest takeaway at the end, we'll ask, this has been great. We now know you, you know us. What can we do for you?
What can we do for you?
What can we do for you? Like, we want to impact you and your business. You've given us this lunch and we've gotten value. What can we do for you to support? And they're kind of taken back by it. And I mean, it just gives me goosebumps thinking about it. Some of the moments that we've had with people, and they're like, actually, yeah, do you have anyone that's looking for this or that? So now we're working together with people that we didn't even think we had a reach to.
Right.
So it's just been powerful. And now we're taking people that we've taken out, they're calling us and asking, when are we going to go out again? So, it's going good when they want you to come back. So
that's for sure. That is for sure. So can you imagine what it's going to be like in 3 months when when all of this kind of comes back around and we're all kind of getting back on, and I say 3 months, it could be less than 3 months, it could be a little bit more than 3 months, but
That's
we've got
right.
professional tenants who are going to truly take advantage of not being able to be evicted and that kind of
Right.
thing, but it will catch up. And there's going to be a lot of landlords, I think, that are
Yeah.
going to be so fed up that will really be primed for seller financing, wanting to get rid of their portfolios and that kind of thing. And I always tell people that the best place to find a landlord that's fed up is outside of the eviction courthouse, right?
Right. Which
There,
isn't opened right now.
that's right. That's right. It's not open now, but
Yeah.
it will be.
Right.
Well, that's a great way to get in touch with them. But how is it that you're finding your portfolio sellers?
Yeah. Well, I definitely agree with the eviction court. When it's not open, I would say the other people that are, truly on the front end would be the property managers. So they're dealing with the situation. They know who's liquidating in the next few years. So when I bought that first portfolio, I realized, well, I should just be calling property managers, introducing myself, letting them know that I'm here. And when I would call, my first question would be, do you know anybody liquidating in the next couple of years? I'm an investor. I'm looking to buy a whole portfolio, already rented. It's okay if there's problems. We know how to deal with it. And you can make commission on the whole sale versus listing one-offs for them. And then if they want to do seller financing, I'll give you a cash offer, which it will be lower. But if they want to do seller financing, that option's great because it might help them offset their tax hit. So if they're selling 10 properties, the tax hit in that 1 year could be huge for depreciation recapture on them holding it as a rental.
Mm,
And then, the tax hit on the capital gains. You're selling 10 at one time. That can be a huge impact, especially to an older landlord that might have benefits that will impact them.
right.
So when you're calling property managers, it's harder because you're not talking to the seller. You don't know their pain points. But I guarantee you the property managers know their pain points just like they know their own. So
Hmm.
they have an idea who might be liquidating. And you might not get somebody right away. You might need to touch them a couple times by phone or just introduce yourself by email, connect social media. When people can see you and they see what you're really doing, it makes a difference. So I would just say start with that. Call some local property managers, introduce yourself, get them to know you. And I've had guys actually, say no, they wouldn't do seller financing. I know they wouldn't. And I said, well, just ask them to call their CPA. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a CPA. So ask them to call their professionals. And I've had them come back where this guy thought he needed a cash offer. And then the next day, he calls me and he says, I talked to my lawyer, talked to my CPA. You're right. If I sold it, his tax hit was going to be over 200 grand for
Wow.
the depreciation recapture. He had not even thought about it. So he said, I can no longer take the cash offer. The seller financing offer is back on the table, but I'll give it to you at your cash price. So
Wow.
he saw the value. He knew he couldn't do it.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
A couple people have been typing about really, I think your magic is the way that you talk to people, and you are always turning it around to how you can help them. Like, well, what can you do? Which was an important question on, buying that answer. You can't do this. Well, what can you do?
Right.
And what can I do for you? I think both of those are, key phrases that you're using in that. And I think that's the point. If you approach anything as not what can I get out of it,
Yeah.
but how can we all win at this? So many people are focused on, what's the best deal for me, but really it's what's the best deal for everyone involved.
Right.
That's the true key. So the other thing too, you touched a little bit on Airbnb, but you have one of the best stories, I think, in the whole wide world about the Airbnb that you had, or
Yeah.
house you were selling in kind of a resort area in the
Right.
Virginia area. Tell a little bit about that.
Yeah. Oh man, I should write a book because I feel like I have a lot of stories that are just interesting. You think there's no way this could be real, but I'm gonna tell you, real estate, you run into just crazy times. And I told myself I would never Airbnb again because of my experience. I live in Richmond, and about an hour and a half is a little island called Gwynn's Island. It's near Gloucester, Virginia area, and it's right at the Chesapeake Bay. So this little 2-mile island, I thought it'd be great to Airbnb. I got a great deal. I actually got seller financing. Well, I really got it as a lease purchase, so I didn't take ownership. But I asked them if I could try Airbnb to see if it was successful. And if it was, I would move forward on the purchase. So they decided to give me a year to try it. So I did some things to the property to make it look, a little bit more presentable, and then I filled it with furniture. And I didn't manage it right. So there's definitely a right way and a wrong way to manage the Airbnbs. And I would say the wrong way is that you try to do everything yourself, right? Like you think like it's my deal. Who's going to handle it better than me, right? Like I'm going to be on it. And that was my intention. But when you manage a property an hour and a half away and it's a short-term rental, you really do need a team on the ground or, people that are more on it than me, right?
Absolutely.
So I was doing good at the beginning. It's a little retirement area, very quiet area. My guests that stayed, they would go on the dock and they would write reviews. They saw dolphins on the dock, very peaceful, quiet, right? So you think quiet, I didn't think I would have any problems with my neighbors, right? So it's a retirement area. Wrong. Retirement areas are very active. So my last guest was staying Memorial Day weekend, and they were coming in town for a wedding. And in the middle of the night, I got a message saying, is someone supposed to be in this house with us? They had heard somebody come into the home, into the second guest room, and they were rustling around. Like, I don't know what they were doing.
Oh
But my guests ran out of the property. They were there for a wedding, so they went and stayed at their friends down the street. I had to refund them. It was confusing. I'm like, who's staying in my house? What's going on there? I didn't have cameras. So I called the police, I called neighbors, asked them to look around, and I thought, this is too much. I'm just going to go ahead and sell it, make some profit. So I put the house on the market. I decided Airbnb wasn't for me. Something weird was going on. I couldn't figure it out, and I didn't want to risk other guests to be, in that situation. I mean, we could upgrade security, but I just thought it was too much to handle. So we put it on the market, y'all, and a realtor was going to show it. When she opens the front door, there are clothes all in the hallway. There are 2 sandwiches on the dining room table, and the back door is wide open. It's like 2 people were naked, and they just ran out the back door when they heard someone come in. And so we got the call. My agent got the call saying, something's going on. So we called around. We found out the neighbor was having an affair with the other neighbor across from us. And all I could picture, they're both in their 70s. So all I could picture was them running out of the house naked. It really did affect my business. Now I can laugh about it because it was just crazy. You never expect that to happen. But that was my last Airbnb experience. I swore it off. I thought it was just too much. But here I am, buying this big house. And the reason for it, I think it's going to be a different experience. This is maybe 5 minutes from my home. And also the different type of businesses that I'm talking to, I'm talking to wineries, I'm talking to, companies that could potentially use it. I feel like it's going to do something different in my business life, not just real estate, but overall. And that gets me excited. So here I am again, going back into Airbnb, but more from a corporate side versus, a rental an hour and a half in a very active retirement community. So crazy.
That's so awesome. I love that story. I remember you telling us that when that had just happened, and I just thought it was the funniest thing.
Yeah.
Funniest
so
thing. That was a
funny.
great story. So Lori, I can't thank you enough for taking your time to share with us. And I know everybody that comes to the morning meetings, they're glad to finally see your face, because I do talk about you a lot, and
Oh,
it's just
thank you.
so inspiring for me to see what you do. And I love what you do. I love who you are, and you're inspiring to all of us. I know Mary Hart says the same thing. When we all get together, we just love
Oh,
sitting around listening to Lori, because you do all the things that we're scared to do because we think we know everything. And we're thinking that
no,
won't work, but Lori goes
no,
out and makes it all work. And it's the answer is always no if you don't ask, right?
that's right. That is right.
So we're just so grateful to you. Thank you for doing that. And
Thank
um,
you.
I also want to, there's a couple of questions over here that I want to hit up on. So somebody says, do we know if construction workers are considered essential workers? Cheryl, yes, they are.
Yeah.
Talked about that a little bit in the beginning, but you may have missed that. I do have forms in a Dropbox that I'm going to figure out how to email out to all of you. I also put it on our Facebook page for Sonrisers. And then I also want to mention too that you guys know that we've been doing a lot of work over in Africa. And because of this virus, it truly is global. I mean, we're talking of our friends in Australia. We've got people in Africa. They're going through the same things that we are. And the orphanage that we're doing work for in Tanzania, the majority of their older kids are off at a private school that they live in during the school year. And it's cost the orphanage a lot less to have to feed all those kids. Well, all their schools are closed. All the kids are back at the orphanage. So they're in need of funds over the next 2 months to feed their kids. And we're trying actually to raise money for the next 3 months. And we're trying to raise $6,000 to do that. They need $1,500. It says a week to feed 88 kids, but I'm thinking it's $1,500 a month. But anyway, we're trying to raise $6,000 to help these kids. And if you are willing to help, we would really, really appreciate it if you go to goldsboroworshipcenter.com. It is clicked here on our little chat thing, but I'm going to copy and paste it again. Go to goldsboroworshipcenter.com, and there'll be a tab there called Shalom that you can go right online and give to Goldsboro Worship Center. That would be really awesome if you would do that for us. Anybody that I know now is time everybody's trying to save money, and I certainly appreciate that. But if you could go in and do that for us, folks, anybody who has any funds that you could let go of, even if it's $10, that would really, really help these kids. So we appreciate that. I love all you guys, and we'll be back here again with another Mafia member, actually the godfather of the Mafia in
Oh,
Richmond,
I want to make
Virginia will
it.
be with us. That's right. Jim Ingersoll. And Lori, I hope you'll join us too. We'd love
I'd
to
love
have you on here
to.
again. That's
I'd love
awesome. So
to.
we really love you. It was great information. We thank you so much. And you guys have an awesome week. And keep praying, keep lifting everybody up around you. Fear does not come from the Lord. Everybody needs to keep that in mind. And we are the light and the salt around with what's going on everywhere around here. We are the light and the salt. So just keep on keeping on, y'all. Love you guys, and we'll see you soon.
Love y'all.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
Bye.